right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, episode 91, the number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton. Good morning, good sir. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Did you happen to see, before you get into anything relevant?
Yes. I have to start with the irrelevance.
Yes. Did you see any of the Lakers game last night?
Yeah, I actually watched a good bit of it, maybe half.
Of course you did. Did you see the end where LeBron's laying on the floor clutching his? Please tell me you saw this.
No, I missed it. I did see a clip of it though on social media this morning when I was at the gym when I was working out.
I am just like, this is your GOAT. For those of you who believe LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time, Julius Randle goes in and hits a layup, wide open layup. As he's coming down, he drops his arm, and it just kind of grazes his face and shoulder. LeBron falls to the floor and is clutching his face like this, rolling on the ground. They call an offensive foul on Julius Randle, and they negate the basket. Mind you, this is in clutch time and could be like a big deal as far as, the results of this game. He's rolling around on the ground. They end up reviewing it, and I'm sitting here.
Showmanship.
Yeah, well, I'm watching this. I'm thinking they're going to review this, and they're going to be like, oh, LeBron flopped. This isn't actually an offensive foul. They reviewed it and they still gave him an offensive foul. What is this? I'm like, do you think Michael Jordan? Show me a clip of Michael Jordan holding his face, rolling on
the only ground. Time Michael Jordan had any moments like that was when he's being slammed to the ground by Bill Laimbeer. You know what I mean? Like body slammed by Bill
Laimbeer.
Clotheslined.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I didn't see it live, but I saw it on clips this morning. But yeah, not a great look. But I mean, so I guess the devil's advocate for that, not my argument, but the devil's advocate argument for it is it's effective. They won the game. They got the call. Like that's the old Chris Paul thing, right? Like the acting.
Yeah.
The old James Harden thing, probably more than that. James Harden's probably worse, like kicking his leg out, and shooting when he's shooting. And
don't you feel like it's ruining the sport a bit though? Like that type of behavior.
I don't like it. It's not fun to watch as a fan.
No, it's not. That's my NBA playoff moment of the podcast. There'll be a lot of those as we go through the playoffs, you guys. But
well, before we get into our first topic this morning, I'll just briefly say one last thing about it. We have Game 3 of the Denver Clippers series tonight.
Should we tell the audience what's going on with this series?
I think we should. Because part of the bet involves showing up on the show in certain attire, right? So
I told my son. He picked out my daughter's tiara. He's like, this is what you're going to wear when the Nuggets lose, Dad. And I'm like, the Nuggets aren't going to lose. The Clips are going to lose.
They're going to lose.
Walk them through this. Walk them through this bet, this wager.
We had a disagreement on who was going to win the Clippers Denver series, which, by the way, like, by far the best first round series. It's like it
totally
feels like
agree.
A conference finals series, like
anyone could win any game. It's going to go to a game 7.
Yeah,
I would bet
it should go 7.
Yeah, it'll be game
7. So Glenn picks Denver because he thinks Jokic can win the whole series by himself. I picked the Clippers. I think they have a better team. I think they have more depth. I think Kawhi is a monster. He seems healthy. Fingers crossed.
For the moment.
Until tonight.
Yeah.
But so basically we bet a measly $100 on it. No biggie,
Yep.
But in addition to that, the loser has to come on to the podcast wearing one piece of gear of the team that they bet against. So for me, it would be Denver. For Glenn, it would be the Clippers.
If I have to buy anything Clippers, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be sick. That'll be worse than anything, I think.
And then in addition, wearing a piece of an accessory from our daughters that belongs to our dog. In the entire pod one day with both of those things on at once.
Oh my gosh, I am really dreading the idea of it. I don't think you understand when they lost game 2. I broke inside a little bit. I was like, no, no.
I could see it happening too, because Kawhi was prime MJ. He was prime MJ.
Kawhi was a robot.
Bro, I was listening to a podcast this morning when I was driving to the gym, and they were talking about how, like, healthy at his best, Kawhi is as good as any player that's ever played. And I'm like, maybe. Like, take injuries out, like when he's at his best and he's healthy, he's really, really good. Like, he's really good.
He really is. The way the mechanics of how he moves on the floor is like textbook. Like, you couldn't animate, it's like watching an NBA 2K video game and he's just like glitching on the floor. It looks like he's like beep, beep, beep. That step back last game was insane.
This is the last thing I'll say, I promise, and then we'll get onto the main topics. But an hour into the show, so a lot of players need screens to get their shots off. Did you notice he really didn't? You didn't need screens
over the top.
You could put anybody on him. You're putting Gordon on him, who's a good defender, big, long guy. Putting Porter on him, who's a long guy, 6'10". It don't matter. You don't need screens. He's getting any shot he wants. You can't stop him.
Both of those players are injured, by the way, to some degree. But that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, let's name them.
But okay. No, but like the point more than who's guarding him is like a lot of players, they need a screen to get around the defender. Yeah. Kawhi is like, Kobe was kind of like that. Jordan was kind of like that. Like you don't need a screen. You just give them the ball, and they can get to their spots and get whatever shot they want against any defender, and you can't do anything about it. And like
100%.
Kawhi's kind of like that.
Yeah, I watched it. It's true. No denying it. No denying it.
We will update you guys on tomorrow morning on how tonight's game goes.
Yes,
we'll talk about it.
Actually, I don't think they play tonight.
Are you sure?
I think they have. Yeah, I think they have tonight off because they're traveling.
Oh, that's sickening if that's true.
Yeah, you're giving out false misinformation on the podcast today.
You're right.
I'm right. Misinformation.
It's tomorrow. Forgive me.
Yes.
Forgive me.
Forget me all excited.
Forgive me, audience. Excited. All right, let's transition into the first topic. And main topic of the show is, and I want to spend as much time on the main topic as possible because I think it's a big one. When should agents start preparing for AEP, and how should they be preparing for AEP? But the intro topic is, what do you need out of a CRM? I think everybody knows at this point they need a CRM, but what do they need to get out of the CRM? What should they be utilizing it for? I would argue that the vast majority of agents, probably a huge number, are not using their CRM properly. Would you agree with that?
I think the vast majority aren't even using it, is what it really is, to be honest. And again, this is coming from someone, I get to see inside people's CRMs every day. We integrate into almost, at Lead Heroes, we'll integrate into almost any CRM you can think of. I've seen almost all of them, dialers, CRMs. And then obviously we have our own CRM, 7-figure CRM. So we see a lot of what the activity looks like in there. And the reality from what I can see, and this isn't everyone, but it seems like the majority really aren't utilizing it, except maybe doing the absolute minimum, the absolute basics, which is disheartening.
Minor data in it.
Yeah, leads go in, maybe a couple things getting updated on the leads. Maybe it's like a single pass through, like tried calling this lead, and like that's it. Leads uploaded, one data point attached to it, tried calling, didn't answer, and it's like, boom, moved on. Like no system in place on what to do. And I will say this too, as pertaining to this topic, one of the most successful Medicare agents who I know, who wrote thousands of clients on their own pen, They'd had a really rudimentary CRM. I can't, you know what it was actually, now that I'm remembering what it was. It was one of the IMOs who offered a CRM at the time. Super basic, super basic. No bells and whistles. You couldn't do like any communication from the CRM. It was literally as basic as a database, essentially. However, this agent was religious about the utilization of that CRM. And I think it led to that agent's success, especially bringing in team members. You didn't, this agent in particular I'm talking about didn't have a big team, but when you have all of this information on someone and it's all right there in the database, and whether you're looking at their info or an LOA or a customer service person looking at that, it is such a big difference. And obviously, you know, Christian, you can speak to that too on the ESI side, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I think we do a great job with it.
I do, and then you know, I do as well. And so I feel like, to me, a CRM should be used primarily for organization and touch points.
Pop quiz.
Whether
What does CRM stand for?
client relationship management system.
Whoa,
I
there
had to
you
think about
go.
it.
He froze for, I was like, did we lose the internet connection there for a second?
I had to think about it. The alpha brain was just kicking in right about now.
Client relationship manager. That's
Yes.
correct.
So that's, to me, the two most pivotal things, and everything else is gravy. Like, organization, when people think of organization, they like, what does that mean? I think obviously it's storing your client information, but it's also notes of every interaction. It's your call recordings. It's every app. It's every document you've ever needed with that client, every PDF, all in one place, organized. How they relate to other clients, you know, like family members, you know, tying them together, what policies they have, policy numbers, effective dates, all of that stuff. But then, in addition to that, organization of like a team, like, you know, assigning tasks to other team members, and, you know, all of that stuff really plays in very nicely together in keeping you organized. You know, I couldn't tell you how many sticky notes I had in the early days of my career, where I had
Absolutely.
sticky notes all over my all over my monitor. It was disgusting, and I was losing things all the time and just not working right. And so, in addition to that, I talk about the touch points. Touch points meaning like email, text, integrating it into automation capabilities, tools like sending out cards, their birthday cards, thank you cards. I have been religious about saying it is stupid in 2025 to handwrite a card to a client. I just think it's not smart, because you can automate it. It looks great. We don't touch anything like that. And people are like, well, I have a great retention rate because I have a customer, you know, I provide that experience and it's a personal touch. None of you have a better retention rate than we do. I feel confident in saying that. We had a 97.5% retention rate from last year to this year. And we don't do that. We don't spend a second on that. So who's right and who's wrong? We're right. I'm sorry. We are. So,
and
but anyway,
humble about and humble.
and humble. No, but
Be humble.
it drives me crazy, you know, like, you know, it really does drive me insane. But like, we use our CRM in that way, to where we integrate it into with some of those other tools that, you know, help automate things like that, like the cards and sending out the cards and things like that. Like, so I think, to me, those are the main two things a CRM should be doing. But there's certainly other things, like any Go High Level CRM will let you design and host websites, landing pages, things like that. You can integrate in your Facebook Ads Manager to have the leads automatically go in when you run Facebook ads. You can integrate your Google My Business. So, you know, you have Google My Business campaigns. You get notified when you get new reviews, everything like that. There's so many things you can do, but like, I feel like the biggest things are the organization and the automations and touch points and things like that.
I think what we've seen over the past 10 years is this shift from CRMs being more of a database into a communication management system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Shout out to Radius Bob. Radius
Mm-hmm.
Bob was one of the early systems. And the big thing they integrated early on was email marketing,
Yeah.
where you could send emails out of their system. And that was a big deal. It was a big deal to a lot of users. Radius Bob, if you don't know who they are, shout out to Clue, CEO over there. Great guy, great system. They actually got acquired or they merged with Agency Block. So they are now one and the same, or they still have separate systems. I'm not exactly sure. This has been happening over the past
They're
couple of
kind of
years.
one and the same now. They've kind
Yeah.
of integrated. It's my understanding.
So working with Radius Bob, and Radius Bob stands for Book of Business. So it's like, how close are you to your book of business? That was the idea behind the name. But working with Clue early on, and that being one of the big CRM system, watching it go from kind of this database tool to now a communication management tool, and that's really what I think the evolution has been over the past decade and now with Go High Level and all these different Go High Level white labels like Seven Figure CRM, the design behind it is how can you communicate with your clients, whether it's a lead, you're nurturing leads that have come in, new leads, older leads, or it could be existing clients, your current book of business. How do you get those touch points? How do you stay in front of them? How do you get referrals? How do you cross sell? I think that's really kind of been the evolution. And now I think the latest part of this, and I don't want to derail this conversation, but AI is kind of coming into the picture now. And again, we're seeing that with the Go High Level white labels is how can AI integrate into some of these CRMs and again, help facilitate this communication, whether that's inbound or outbound and be able to give your client a better experience.
We had a question about CRM recommendations in the chat. Obviously, Seven Figure CRM.
Obviously, look at that sneeze.
End of conversation.
that sneeze was an exclamation.
I had to get it out before the sneeze, and I want to leave everyone.
Yeah,
hanging.
your face was wild when you said that. I was like, "What is going on?" And then I realized
what's going
where
on.
Are we going? He muted his mic, so if you're listening to the audio only on this, you didn't get to experience the facial expression. But
that's a face that is used for other things as well. Sorry, audience.
Oh my god!
No, Seven Figure CRM.
Yeah,
it's a Go High Level white label. It's our Go High Level white label we use internally. We're working on a bunch of new automations and templates and things like that should be out in weeks, right?
Yes.
For all different types of lead sources, and we're constantly innovating the system. But yeah, Seven Figure CRM. Look no further. $97 a month.
A couple others to not seem biased here. If you are wanting to shop and compare, obviously we are a little biased with Seven Figure CRM because it is our system.
You don't need to shop.
We have some great resources. Agency Block, Radius Bob, those two, which are essentially one now. That's another option that's very popular. We have an agent, I think a few agents that are working with Zoho. Zoho has been around a really long time. A bit more of a basic CRM, but for some of you, that's a better fit. Some of you don't want the bells or you're not going to use the bells and whistles, and it's just going to complicate things. So maybe something more basic is a better fit for you. So if you are kind of shopping around, that would be my top three. Seven Figure CRM, Agency Block, Radius Bob, which is one, and then I'd say Zoho. Zoho's it's like Salesforce, but Salesforce is so bloated and overpriced, I would imagine, compared to Zoho. The nice part with a system like Zoho is it's significantly cheaper per user, I believe. But
yeah,
that's my top three.
Let's move into, because I want to have as much time as possible on the main topic. We could probably bring this back for another episode and talk about it in more depth about the CRMs, because
Yeah.
it is a good
Yeah,
topic
we'll
as well.
have
But
to. Yeah, we'll have to.
let's talk about this episode's sponsor. You guys, episode 91 is brought to you by Lead Heroes, Christian Brindle's practice company. No, I'm just kidding. I was waiting all morning to use that.
Oh my gosh. That's the killer.
I mean, let's be real. There's a lot of companies that were practice companies for the janitor.
So for someone else, yeah. Someone else practiced.
Someone was mopping the floors and they were behind the company.
Tom Brady practiced, Patriots were a practice company for Tom Brady at one point,
Not even Tom Brady, the guy deflating the balls for him. Same analogy. Same.
Deflategate makes the pod this morning. I love that.
No, in all seriousness, guys, episode 91 is brought to you by Lead Heroes. If you need a quality lead source, if you just are having trouble having enough quality people, real-time exclusive lead flow to talk to, Lead Heroes is going to be your one-stop shop when it comes to Medicare Supplement, T65, final expense, or even just hiring a caller out on a custom calling pay-by-the-hour campaign basis. Lead Heroes is going to be your source that you want to highly consider. At Lead Heroes, we give you real-time exclusive leads, double verified. The client opts in online, and then they opt in verbally a second time with one of our callers in our call center, and then the lead is passed off to you. Lead Heroes is used by tons of top producing agents all around the country. It's been used in ESI for many years as one of our primary lead sources. So check out Lead Heroes today.
Boom. You heard the man. LEADHEROES, Lead Heroes. A lot of people forget that E. Can't tell you how many times over the past 10 years someone's like, I've tried to go to the website, it's not loading. And I'm like, send me a screenshot. And they spelled LEAD. I should have bought that domain just to redirect it. I'm sorry, you guys. That's a hindsight 20. I probably lost 10% of my website traffic by not doing that, but there is an E. English dictates that heroes plural is HEROES, and I went with the correct grammatical spelling when I named the company. So LEAD, yes, LEADHEROES.com.
Yes. Okay, let's shift gears into the main topic, and that is when and also how should Medicare agents start preparing for AEP? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's already too late. If you didn't prepare for the past 60 days, it's already over. Pack it up, go home. Probably just need to wait for AEP 2027. That's my personal opinion. No, in all seriousness, I think that you should really be preparing from the second, not that you're spending all of your time preparing for the next AEP, but this, I'll give you, again, kind of an example that at Everything Senior Insurance, how we handle AEP and prepping for the next AEP. From the time December 7th rolls around, we're immediately thinking by the back half of December, what could we do better next AEP?
Yes.
We're already doing some planning and some brainstorming. And sometimes it's conversations with the team as well, especially at Lead Heroes. This is how it's been for a long time too. We're same types of conversations as, what did we do well this AEP? What didn't we do well this AEP? How can we do better next AEP? And starting that thought process early, not that you're putting all of your energy or all of your, resources and money into planning right away, but I think you've got to be thinking about it and strategizing now. I wouldn't wait, which some of you do, and it blows my mind. Every year I get blown away by some of you who call October 1st and, hey, Glenn, I'm thinking about some leads, some preset appointments. What's going on? And it's like, why are you calling me now? I'm like, what are you saying? I'm like, it already started. Like, the gun went off. The racers left the finish line. Now you decided to pick up a new pair of running shoes. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what's going on, you guys? Who hurt you? What happened?
Or like who taught you that was okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a great point, right? And I think I've said for years, and I'll provide a little detail into it. It kind of piggybacking on what you said a second ago, that the best time to start preparing for AEP is December 8th of for basically for the next year's AEP. But like Glenn said, it's not like you're putting together an entire game plan from start to finish. In terms of what you're doing for AEP, it's more of you're starting. There's little things that you are preparing for. There's things that you're having conversations about internally, about things you can be doing differently. There is little strategic things that you're doing. Doesn't mean you have to have an entire plan, and truthfully, you cannot.
Right.
Because you don't know. You don't know. You don't know. Yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen, disruption-wise, plan change-wise, everything like that. But you're going to have an idea of how you could do things differently, maybe do things in a better, more efficient way than you did this past AEP. And so there's little things. Now, that being said, as you go, you need to ramp up more and more and more. Some agents take this really a little too seriously, though, from the standpoint that all they do is wait for AEP, and they don't build or run their business the rest of the year. That's not a good thing either. And it's one of those things where I think if you're watching this now, you should be doing things now. If you haven't done anything for AEP prep, I would not wait any longer. I would be, planning out how you're going to touch your clients. How are you going to follow up with your clients? How are you going to make sure your clients are taken care of? How are you going to get new clients? What is your marketing strategies? What kind of budget do you want to have? What do you want to look at? Again, you can't come up with everything until you know what kind of disruption you're looking at in your market. And you're not going to know that until some of these first looks come out June, July, maybe in some cases even August. But you build almost like a skeleton now that you can adjust here and there based on what the AEP season is going to look like as you get more information. And that's how I've always done it with ESI. That's how I've always kind of designed it. I remember I saw an agency owner one time, kind of like pumping their chest out a little bit on Facebook a couple years ago about we have every detail of what we're going to do for AEP signed, sealed, and delivered by the end of January. I'm like, bullshit. I'm like, how can you when you don't know what's going to happen?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think I might have challenged them on it on their post because I've been known to do.
You probably did.
And their response was like, well, I'm in with the carriers, so they tell me what's going on in advance. I'm like,
no
the
way.
Carriers don't even fully know what they're going to do. They might have an idea, but it's just it was such nonsense. And I knew it was nonsense. Sometimes like when you're in the know and you see someone spouting off nonsense, you can see it a mile away. And this was one of those situations. Again, I think preparation as you go is very important, especially early on in the year. But I really feel strongly that like you build almost like, okay, tentatively, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to spend. This is what I'm going to spend it on. This is how I'm going to allocate each dollar amount to this. This is how I'm going to reach out to clients. I'm going to send emails this day. This is what the email is going to look like. I'm going to send letters out this day. I'm going to send a second set of letters out potentially this day. We're going to call these people. But I'm ready to make adjustments as new information becomes available. I think this past AEP was a prime example of that. Like there was new information hitting us. It seemed like every week that really kind of adjusted what our strategy was going to be for AEP. And I think you have to be ready, almost like a cat. You're on your tippy toes. You're ready to pat. You're ready to jump.
Easy, furry. Easy.
Um, yeah, that's kind of the way I've always approached AEP, and it's really never did us wrong. And as we go, I'll share later in the episode. I'll kind of share what we do at ESI AEP wise historically,
I
because a
think
lot
that
of what we do repeats
would be
over and
great.
over again.
Yeah, a lot of it, and again, if something's working, don't fix it if it's not broken, right? Like go back to the well. If you have a strategy for contacting your clients that's been working well, keep doing it. One thing that I've talked a lot about over the past few years, a lot of you get temporary help for AEP, and a lot of times that's a virtual assistant that's coming in to help you with some extra work. So, the question then becomes, if I'm hiring a virtual assistant, again, shout out to Hire Heroes. If you're going to give Hire Heroes a call and you're wanting to bring on a virtual assistant, one of the big questions I'll get is timing wise. When do I do this? If this is, something where it's going to be part-time help or full-time help, but it's seasonal, right? It's just during AEP. When would I pull that trigger? Because, I don't have anything for them to do right now. But the flip side of it is, you don't want to bring them in October 1st and then be like, go start doing this, and you're too busy to even help them understand what they're supposed to do. So, looking at the calendar, I
Or Bust podcast is brought to you by Everything Senior Insurance. Guys, if you're looking for an FMO in 2025 to be a partner with you and really support the overall growth of your business, Everything Senior Insurance is the one-stop shop to allow you to get plugged in with great resources. Whether it's ACA contracts you're looking for, whether it's Medicare contracts you're looking for, whether it's final expense and life contracts that you're looking for, Everything Senior Insurance has got you covered. We provide a free CRM in seven-figure CRM to all of our agents that meet the proper requirements on their contracting and have enough contracts with us. We provide discounted leads with Lead Heroes, discounted virtual assistants with Hire Heroes, and we provide just year-round support to just be there and help you out in your business, as well as fantastic training. Glenn, what do people need to know about Everything Senior Insurance, the FMO?
At Everything Senior Insurance, we've really combined all of our resources to create an FMO that can be a true one-stop shop for a senior insurance agent. Most FMOs have only maybe one resource or even no resources beyond offering that contract. We want to provide value to you as an agent to help you grow your book of business. Or if you want to create an agency, we want to help you grow your agency. And there's so many resources that we have put together to really help you grow your business. So if you are looking for a true partnership, someone that will invest in your business, please reach out to Everything Senior Insurance. We would love to help you grow.
Thanks for listening to this message. And now back to the show.
On your staff and helping.
Yeah, I love that. And, I totally agree with you. Like if someone's able to do it, the sooner the better, right? The longer you have somebody under your belt and working in your business, the more ready and seasoned they're going to be come AEP. Like, we knew we needed another customer service rep, for example, for this year internally at ESI. We hired them in Q1 because we wanted them to basically have the rest of the year under their belt. But that being said, if you're in a situation where you really are treating it as a temporary person, I don't think you can wait any longer than doing it around that timeline that Glenn said, bringing somebody on in August. I think some people make the mistake of thinking they can bring somebody in. You've talked about it a lot with virtual assistants before, that like they have an expectation that they're going to come out ready out of the box, batteries included.
No assembly required.
Yeah, no assembly required. Deliverers will put it wherever you want in your office, next to that desk, off to the side. And it's not the case, because they are like any other employee. They're a human being that needs to be trained, not just on how to do things. I think, the great Cynthia Ivey said, and I'm going to quote her because she said it so well.
Yes.
She's had a lot of success with virtual assistants with Hire Heroes, but she said on a training call we were on last year that it's not about necessarily them learning what to do, it's how you want them to do it, which is different for all of you. And I think that's so, so true.
Yes.
And I couldn't have said it any better myself. And I think, the more time you can give somebody to learn, the more success you're probably going to have with them. Some of you just are impatient. You're just not patient with these people.
Absolutely. That's a huge piece of this. And some of you are incredibly impatient where like you think, and this applies, I was going to say too, like we're talking a lot about virtual assistants right now, helping, Medicare agents during AEP, but this applies to LOAs too.
Mm-hmm.
Any staff that you're going to be bringing in. I mean, at Everything Senior Insurance right now, we're talking about, how many LOAs are we going to need and have them up and ready for AEP? And if we're going to have them for AEP, we should probably look at bringing them in now. Because again, we're already thinking, right? We're already thinking about October 1st. It's April 23rd right now. So I just lost my train of thought there. We were talking about how that was the piece that you mentioned there. So how they do something, not just, what you want them done. And what the analogy I was going to give here, when I became a licensed agent, and my focus was life insurance when I first came on, but I genuinely, as an individually producing agent, I felt like to get my sea legs where I felt like I really knew what was going on and I knew how to handle certain situations. I knew underwriting, I knew quoting, I knew how to contact the carriers and, kind of the soup to nuts. I started to feel good about being an agent. It really took me personally 6 to 9 months. So if that's my case as an independent producer, why would I think I could hire an LOA and be like, why aren't you doing your job 2 to 3, 4 weeks later, right? And that's the mindset a lot of you have, whether it's a virtual assistant or an LOA. You bring someone on, you give them like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, why aren't you able to figure this out? Well, what's going on? And a lot of it is patience, and part of it is just a lack of time investment into your team. That's another part of it too, is you have to water the garden. And some of you are refusing to do that.
Yeah, like it's just like, I think I see this a lot with insurance agents in particular, especially when like they have a smaller team, right? They have like 1 or 2 people. You'll hear from like their employees that like, I feel like they expect me to read their mind. They don't clearly communicate what their expectations are for me. And, I think that's really pivotal. I think, good communication, taking time to really teach them what you want them to do, is really important. I know this isn't supposed to be a virtual assistant segment, but I think it ties in really nicely. But
sponsored by Hire Hero.
but it's true, right? Like, and I don't think I'm necessarily perfect at this. Glenn isn't perfect at this either, so we're not saying all of this from a place of like, none of that. But I think we've both learned over the years and gotten better at that and clearly kind of communicating to our teams internally, kind of like what's expected of them and everything like that. And I think that's a really important thing to grasp onto when you're working with any employees. Okay, let's shift gears from virtual assistants hiring. I think that was really important to this conversation. Let's talk about like marketing and new client acquisition.
Oh yeah, that's great.
And also client retention and how to balance them. Because some agents I feel like if they're doing one, they can't do the other.
I want to say one last thing about the staffing part of it is, and shout out to Jake. Jake, we basically like Clockwork Orange. We sit him down, we lock him into a chair, we tape his eyelids, we make him watch every episode of this podcast for us. But I've had a few interactions with Jake where we're working on some video stuff, and he has essentially read my mind. And there's no better feeling when you start to have a shorthand with a staff member where they know how you want something done. And before you can even fully communicate it, it's already being done the way you want it done. I love that. That
Yeah.
makes me happy. That puts a huge smile on my face every time. And so that's more than achievable. You can get there, but it just takes time. So just wanted to give Jakey Poo a quick shout out and also let people know that you can get to the point where people can kind of read your mind a little bit, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. So
a lot of work with that person. It takes time for them getting to know you, you getting to know them, all of that stuff. So yeah, it definitely takes time. Okay, so
marketing.
So 3 questions, three things basically. So marketing, budgets, new client acquisitions. Because I feel like if you're not trying to grow during AEP, your business is broken. I really believe that. 2, client retention, which is important. And 3, how do you balance those 2 together? Because again, both are important. You need to be doing both. You need to be prioritizing both. And it is possible to do. Some of you feel like if you're doing one, you can't do the other. So let's start with marketing.
Well, and what I was going to say too here is, I've had the opportunity to work with some insurance carriers directly on how they operate during AEP. So, top to bottom, I've really seen, I've seen it all in the sense of, I've seen independent agents, agency owners, IMOs, FMOs, and I've seen the insurance carriers themselves, how they're operating marketing during AEP. And really the strategy is, I think first you come up with that budget, right? You have to figure out from a cash flow standpoint or from a resource standpoint, if you're borrowing money, if, whatever that looks like, how much are you actually able to allocate towards marketing to acquire new clients? Then you set a goal or a target for your CPA, your cost per client acquisition, CPA. And then your goal is to try to monitor those numbers, your marketing spend's going out the door and you're seeing, how many clients are coming in the door. And that's kind of your key metrics that you're tracking is, lots of metrics you can track, right? We've talked about this on the show before, cost per lead, closing percentage, yada, yada, yada. The list goes, contact percentage, appointment sit rate, presentation rate. I mean, there's all these different metrics you can track. And a lot of times it's great to have, and maybe you can make adjustments, but like if you really have to have your thumb on one thing, it's money going out and clients coming in. What is your cost to acquire that client? And then being able to pump the brakes if things start to go sideways in one direction or another. If your CPA gets too low, maybe that means it's going so well and you don't have the ability to handle the flow of clients coming in. Example, you drop 1,000 pieces or 10,000 pieces of direct mail, you get a higher response rate than you're anticipating. Mm-hmm. So you get this huge influx back, your cost per lead's really low, and you're getting a great CPA, but maybe you don't have enough help to get through all of these leads that came back in. Now you need to adjust imagine you're sitting in kind of a cockpit, right? You have all these levers, these buttons. You have to kind of know how to maneuver based on what you're seeing. So, and then the flip side, right? If your CPA starts to creep up and it's too high and now you're not profitable for over 2 years, 3 years, some of the big boys, you guys, they don't care about their immediate profitability because they're playing the long game. The bigger the organization, the bigger the company, the bigger the entity, they're willing to probably take a loss 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, it's wild. I've heard and personally seen some target CPAs that are like 800, 900. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you're talking about essentially flushing the entire lifetime client value into the cost to acquire that client because they're just going to try to basically eat as much of the market cap as they can. They're trying to grow as big as they can. And a lot of times that's how you win. The company that spends the most will acquire the most clients. A lot of times that's the truth. So I'll get off my soapbox there and kind of turn the same questions over to you, Mr. Brindle. From a marketing budget, CPA standpoint, maybe you could speak to some of the adjustments or pivots that you've had to make. You already kind of talked about being able to audible some of these AEP plans. I know historically you've talked about that on the show too. Maybe there's something around that you could mention, and maybe that would help some of our audience.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think I love everything you said there, and I think having a target CPA is really good. I think it helps if you've been tracking those numbers all year round and you've been selling all year round.
Yes.
Yes.
God.
Because you're not like kind of starting that whole process and
Right.
learning how to do that during
You're just
AEP.
guessing. Yeah, you're just guessing October 1st. Yeah.
That's not great. But I think like anytime I was ever putting together like a marketing budget, one thing I learned, and I've told the story on the pod before, so I won't tell it again, but like, I have been burned in the past in my early years by not having good diversity of lead flow, because things can happen that are kind of out of your control that you're not expecting. And then you wind up being in the middle of AEP and you don't have lead flow coming in and you're like, crap, what do I do? And you don't want to be in that situation. So I think like having some diversity is a good thing. You don't need 10 different lead sources, but if you can develop, maybe I would say your big three. I've become really bullish on this lately, like having like your big three lead sources, and then maybe you have a couple that are like in the background, right? Like they're not as prevalent, but they're there. So like maybe you have 3 to 5 in total, but you have 3 that like are your big 3. So like for us, for example, historically for AEP, our big 3 have been Facebook leads, seminars, and Lead Hero leads. That's been our big 3, right? And that I can't see that changing anytime soon. And I feel like what if I was trying to put together a marketing budget, let's say I did not co-own Lead Heroes and I had to buy leads like back in the day, let's say I had 10 grand to spend, hypothetically. I'm going to figure out of those 3, which one's my 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to break up my 10,000 and spend it over those 3. Maybe you have 4 or 5 that are smaller ones. Maybe I'm putting 10% or less into those other 2 small ones in the background. An example of that, like for us, is like we do senior expos every year. Sometimes we'll do TV segments where I'll go on TV and talk to a pregnant lady.
Billboards.
Yeah, billboards, like the little things like that. Things that are just going on in the background that I feel like can supplement our other marketing, right? Can kind of, people be like, that looks familiar to me. I've seen that before, yada, yada, yada. But like, I'd figure out like out of my big 3, which one is my 1, 2, and 3. And then I'd probably put the most into 1, second most into 2, of course. And then, allocate what's left into 3, and then maybe 5 to 10% into the 3 or 4 that are in the background. And then I think you have a really good lead strategy. Again, the other thing too is like if you're working with, let's say you're doing direct mail, or you're doing Lead Hero orders, things like that. If you're working with any type of vendors, like let's say you're working with a vendor to advertise seminars, if you're doing seminars, you want to get those orders in early if you can, like August. Because if you wait till September, the end of September, beginning of October, there might not be volume left for you.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's a huge thing. I'm also trying to, like, when I have historically ran Facebook ad campaigns myself, I would build the ad and I would schedule it out and have different campaigns start various days throughout AEP. But I'm building it in advance. I'm not like building it October 1st.
Great point. We talked about the staffing thing and doing that in advance, not waiting till the end. And the marketing side of it's honestly the same thing. I think the agency owners, the people who you could consider players, in the space, in the industry, people who've been around the block, who've been doing this a while, they're getting their marketing orders pretty much locked up, I'd say, by September 1st.
Yep.
At least I'd say a full month in advance. Again, you don't want when the gun gets shot and the race starts October 1st, you don't want to be thinking about any of these things. You don't want to be thinking about staffing and hiring and training. You don't want to be thinking about, do I have enough leads? Did I plan far enough in advance? Whether you're doing the marketing yourself or you're utilizing a third-party company, however you're generating, these leads or the marketing, you really, really, really want to have that done weeks in advance. You really do. So something that, again, you can start to loosely put together that plan now. You can start to loosely put together that budget now. And then as you get closer, you start to like tighten the screws a little bit. And you're like, okay, this budget is going to make sense. Or you know what? I think I can spend a little bit more. Or you know what, let's cut this by 20%. I think this was a little overzealous.
Yeah.
And the other part of this too, like Christian said, I love having at least 3 main sources. Maybe you have more.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily go down to 2, but I think 3 is a good number. Some people have 4 or 5. Some might be organic sources too, referral systems, stuff like that, where you have people coming in, leads coming in, calls coming in. But then, with those paid marketing sources specifically, depending on what's going on, being able to pivot between those as AEP is going, maybe one you're not having a good conversion rate with, maybe one you're having low volume, but it's a good lead source, you want to keep it on, and being able to kind of massage, again, thinking about this from like a cockpit point of view, like pulling down different levers and pushing different buttons based on what the results are, what you're seeing, because it's never as simple as being like, I'm going to spend 10,000, my CPA is going to be 200.
Right.
And I wrote it down, so it's going to happen, and I'm buying from Lead Heroes and it's done. Like it's, it's not that simple. I wish that'd be nice.
I think another thing that you mentioned that's important is like, like for us, for example, right? Like I didn't mention it, but referral sources and people finding us online is a big part of our strategy as well internally at ESI, right? Like we were talking yesterday, and our agency will probably write 250 to 300 new clients this year from referrals and people finding us online. Just that, where our CPA is basically 0 on those applications. I feel like the reason why I don't put those into my marketing strategy as much is because they're not predictable.
Yeah,
they're not.
You can't really pull the lever per se, right?
You can't just you can't bank on
20% more. You can't be like, I'm gonna take 20% more organic referrals today. It's like that's the downside, right?
Ready for the leads. We can't do that. Can't do that with that type of stuff. It's important though. It's vastly important for sure. But it's like one of those things where like it trickles in. Sometimes it trickles in more than others. And it's part of your attack for sure, but you can't bank on that. And I think too many of you are banking on that every AEP.
100%.
And you're expecting that to kind of like carry you to the finish line. And I think that needs to be more treated as supplementary and not like, not like your main source, I guess, if that makes sense.
It reminds me of Mike, one of our call center managers. Did you see the GIF, like the meme? It's like it's Kevin from The Office joke, but he AI his face. And I was like, give me the lead, give me the lead, give me the lead. Yes, that's me.
I think we need to do a part 2 on this. I don't know if we have any plans for tomorrow, but it might make sense to do a
maybe.
We didn't
tell us. Tell us, you guys.
Yeah, tell us if you'd like to see that, because we didn't get to get to the retention piece of this, which I think is big, and then also balancing. We didn't get to either one of those.
I think carrier. We could probably spend some time talking about the carrier piece of this too.
Yeah, I mean, well, let us know, guys. We'll highly consider it. I mean, because I do think we do need to finish this up. We're kind of at the end of time for this episode today. But yeah, I mean, let's move into final thoughts. I think, very, very good insight on the marketing side of things that we were able to get into. And the last thing I want to do is try to crowbar in the other two things in the last 5 minutes. I don't think that's going to do
Yeah, I think
anybody
there's
any
a lot. There's a
services.
lot more to be discussed here for sure.
I mean, my final thoughts would be, I definitely think we should do a second episode of this, maybe tomorrow potentially, and just wrap up this conversation. But on the marketing side of things, when it comes to AEP and just your preparation overall, the sooner the better. But at the same time, having the ability to be flexible and workable depending on what's going to come. Like last AEP was, like I said earlier, a classic example of what can happen during AEP. Like, the last 60 days before October 1st, it was a madhouse, in terms of like what's going to happen with final rule, non-commissionable PDPs, millions and 2 million people having their plans canceled. Like all this is happening, and we're finding this out way later in the game than we normally would.
Yes.
And like, if anyone says that they had their entire plan made by the end of Q1, let's say, and they stuck to it and made no adjustments, they're either not being necessarily truthful or they probably didn't have a very good AEP. Like I just don't see how you can do that and not make massive adjustments to your plan. So I think the plan now should be, like we talked about, is developing a rough draft plan, if you will, a skeleton, and then filling in the blanks as you get more information, but not starting your plan from scratch in August or September or anything like that. Like you have an idea of what you want to do going in.
I love all of that. You fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? That's a saying I love. Guys, my final thoughts today, and I do think we need to have a part two. There's a lot more to be discussed here. And this is a really important topic, right? I mean, a lot of agents are only doing business during AEP, and some of you who do sell year round, the vast majority is still coming during AEP. So, planning and getting ready and prepping for AEP is super important. And it might seem really far away right now, but it's really not. Yesterday, we had a fantastic guest on the show, Tony Holland, and I loved what he said at the end, where he was talking about how this coming AEP is going to be fantastic, and that those who are ready and capitalize on those opportunities this AEP, they're going to make a lot of money. And that is, it's such a mindset. And that's what I love about what Tony was sharing yesterday with you guys, is like, regardless of what comes between now and the start of AEP, even if we do get some weird stuff from CMS or the carriers or whatever, if you're planning ahead and you're truly ready when October 1st rolls around to December 7th, you can really grow your business in a big way. Yeah. You can help more seniors than ever. You can earn more commissions than ever, continue to generate more renewals. It's a huge opportunity. So I love that. A couple things here really fast. Shout out to Freebie Friday. I see some of you have already commented on the stream here in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. Every time you comment on a stream, that counts as one entry into a raffle that we do here in the group every single Friday. We have not missed a single Friday yet this year, and my plan is to not miss a single Friday, period. It will probably be over $100,000 in retail cost giveaway by the end of this year. I think we're probably halfway there already, and it's not even halfway through the year. So don't tell Christian the exact amount.
That could all go to me instead of you guys. I don't know.
This week it's like Christian won. Christian's the winner, you guys. He commented.
How pissed would everybody be?
That's hilarious. So we appreciate your guys's contribution to the streams and the community and commenting, and that's what keeps this fun and keeps Christian and I involved, and we love that. So please continue to comment. If you're watching the replay, drop hashtag team replay below. If you're watching live, hashtag team live. And until the next episode, you guys, happy selling. Christian, anything else before we officially sign off here?
Guys, appreciate you watching all the way to the end. As always, you guys are the real MVPs. Make sure to comment on the stream, as Glenn mentioned, to be entered into Freebie Friday. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We're almost at 100 subscribers. We just made it in the last 30 days, where you can see, for the lifetime of the channel being around, basically forever, full-length recordings of this. Facebook deletes them after 90 days now, so that's the best place to see the full-length recordings. If you're listening to an audio-only platform like Apple, Spotify, make sure to subscribe, follow the show, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate the support. And until next time, guys, appreciate you watching. And here's to your massive success. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.